Hey folks, welcome to the Whiskey Hunter. Special treat tonight. We're doing our own very private whiskey and cheese pairing with our own whiskey specialist, John MacPherson. We're going to be diving deep into the Glendronach distillery, pairing a bunch of Glendronach expressions with a bunch of different cheeses. I hope you have some Glendronach at home. Hope you have some cheese at home. Kind of sip along with us, taste along with us, and just open your minds and prepare to get educated, folks. It's gonna be good. Before we get to that, you're gonna want to subscribe to this channel because you don't want to miss out on any of the great whiskey content we got coming at you in the next little while here at the Whiskey Hunter headquarters. And if you have any questions about tonight's pairing, tonight's whiskeys, tonight's cheeses, any whiskey related questions at all, please, like always, leave a comment below. I will get back to you personally. Folks, let's get to the pairing. I'm the whiskey, the Whiskey Hunter. Welcome to our whiskey and cheese tasting with the Glendronach and our special host, our whiskey specialist. Ladies and gentlemen, this is John. Hey, John.
How you doing, Chris? Great to see you. So happy to be here. I am John MacPherson. I work with PMA Canada. I am lucky enough to be the Scotch Specialist here in Ontario, focusing on 12 different brands of Scotch, primarily the Glendronach that we are talking tonight, but a bunch of all these other ones you see behind me. I'll let you look, but we are going to talk Glendronach. We are going to enjoy some cheese pairings with the Glendronach. We are going to have some great flavors, and I am so excited to be here, Chris, so thank you for having me.
Oh, man. My pleasure.
We can do this at whatever pace. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them. I love to answer them as we go on. It's kind of fun for me to do a one-on-one tasting here right now because we get to talk and find our own tasting notes. And I love talking about my own tasting notes, but I love hearing other people's tasting notes. But so the Glendronach, I mean, what can I say about this brand? It's got this cult following around the world that, there it is right there, beautiful, original 12-year-old. And Glendronach are the masters of sherry cask maturation. 90% of the Scotch whiskey industry uses bourbon barrels as their main source of maturation in the processes that they're using. Glendronach, pure sherry maturation, straight from the Spanish bodegas. And they're using primarily Oloroso sherry casks and Pedro Jimenez, or PX as I'll call them throughout the night, casks. And what that does is that brings you different kind of flavors. It brings about these awesome baking spices. Oloroso is known for some dark chocolates and some nuttiness. There's the sweetness that you get from the PX casks. And Glendronach in Scots Gaelic translates to the Valley of the Brambles. So we'll get lots of brambleberry flavors coming in through here as well. So lots of really great flavors. I'll just give you a quick history about the Glendronach. Originally founded in 1826 by a lovely gentleman named James Allardyce. It was built on a location where there was already a building called the Boynes Mill, which is now called the Glen House. And that was where all the staff slept. The distillery manager, the warehouse people, the you name them, they slept there, they hung out there, their families were there. And Glendronach's had this crazy peppered history. It changed hands a bunch of times. There was a fire in the 1800s, which is unfortunate. A lot of it survived, thankfully, and got rebuilt to continue to make this awesome whiskey. But it's this great sherry cask innovation that really brings about this awesome flavor and this awesome character about it. In 2008, a sibling distillery, Ben Riach, actually purchased the Glendronach distillery, and they've been friends ever since. And now them, along with Glenglossa, a lovely coastal Highland Scotch distillery, are owned by Brown Forman. And Glendronach is doing a lot of exciting things under Dr. Rachel Berry, their master blender. And the primary one that we're going to be tasting in the moment here is the Glendronach Original 12, and we love tasting cheese alongside of this whiskey because there's so many fun flavors that the cheeses can bring out. We've got delicate cheeses, we've got bold cheeses, and alongside, ooh, there it is. That's a nice looking setup right there. Your board's a lot fancier than mine. But I don't know, do you want to dive right in and taste our first whiskey here?
Let's do it.
Awesome. So this is the Glendronach 12-year-old. Now I've got one of mine poured already. I don't know if you're all poured up here. Perfect. I'm using ISO glasses and Glencairn's, nice choice. But so the Glendronach 12 is roughly half and half maturation of those Oloroso sherry casks and those PX casks. Now, fully natural color, all the color that we're seeing here is being imparted by those sherry casks. So you see that nice kind of amber gold going on, that influence of that lovely Oloroso sherry cask. I mean, the color alone is beautiful, but the nose, you can tell that the Oloroso and the PX cask, that sherry influence right away. There's vanillas, but there's those autumn fruits that kind of say, hey, how are you?
Yeah. What was the berry? What the bramble?
Yeah, so brambleberries are basically like red berries. They're kind of thorny bushes, but you can get blackberries, raspberries, all sorts of different berry flavors coming out of that. Primarily red berries is what you'll tend to get out of this. But for this one on the nose, there's that nice vanilla, almost a soft ginger, but then those autumn fruits, that slightly more kind of red fruit than you'd expect with some of the orchard fruits you get from a lot of other Scotch and Speyside Scotches. But on the palate, cheers, Sláinte.
Cheers.
So this one's 43%, and you can still feel that finish going on. It's kind of clinging to your palate. It's rich, it's creamy. There's that sherry oak coming through there. But I mean, there's some raisins, there's soft fruits. I mean, I can just keep coming back to this one and just, I mean, the nose alone, but the palate, there's so much really to enjoy about this one. It doesn't kind of kick down the door. It comes in and says, hey, how are you? It's an old friend saying hello for the first time. And it's warming. And I mean, even now, a minute later, it's still holding on to my tongue and it's warming and it's lasting. It's this beautiful finish. But I mean, we've got cheese to play with here as well. So why don't we try some of this Dubliner cheese that we've got in front of us? There's a sharpness and kind of a buttery sweetness that comes along with the Dubliner cheese. Grab my piece here. And it's that sweet influence of the sherry maturation that should go quite nicely with this one. So.
Oh man.
That's a nice cheese. I'm gonna get some more Glendronach going with that one to pair it up.
Oh. It's like making a little sandwich in your mouth.
Exactly. That kind of buttery influence goes with the sweetness of that Glendronach. My mouth is watering so much now because of this. Yeah, it's
it almost turns the cheese like into chocolate. Like it almost becomes desserty almost.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I agree with you wholeheartedly. That's definitely a great way to put it. That's so many people don't think of pairing necessarily cheese with whiskey. There's a lot of great pairings with whiskey. But I mean, cheese is just something that kind of comes in as, I don't know, a lot of people should probably do think of it, but for me, it's this dark horse that never really occurred to me until I tried it and went, whoa, okay. I mean, charcuterie and steaks and a lot of great stuff for sure. But the cheese is just such a great option because you can get so many flavors out of cheeses. You can get subtle and sharp. So a lot of really, really great ones. And I'm quite pleased with that pairing. What do you think?
It's great, but my question is, of the 5 cheeses we have here,
yes,
like, do you think did you choose the Dubliner because it goes great with this particular expression? Like, would the other cheeses not work? Go ahead.
I'm sure they would work great, but Dr. Rachel Berry, the master blender for Glendronach, she actually made this pairing choice. She chose a lot of these cheeses, and I mean, she has a spectacular palate. She's tasted thousands of whiskeys. She knows them. So if she says this is a great pairing, I'm going to trust her. Right. That being said, I mean, she's known as the first lady of whiskey. But that being said, play with it. Play with your whiskey. I'm a huge fan of playing with your whiskey and trying new things with it. So I mean, by all means, pair them all throughout. But these are Dr. Berry's preferred cheeses that we're trying tonight.
Awesome.
Did you know that the Glendronach is actually haunted? There is the Spanish lady who was a person that actually came to Scotland in an Oloroso sherry cask back in the 1800s. And she's coming from sunny, warm Spain, and she ends up in cold, wet Scotland. So she was probably a little upset. But they saw her skirt out from the wagon that arrived with the barrels. And nowadays, if you're staying at the Glendronach distillery, there are people that say, I see someone in traditional Spanish garb in all red clothing and then disappears out of sight.
Wow.
So if you are going to visit the Glen house on site at the Glendronach, apparently she is partial to two types of people. One, younger gentlemen, but two, anyone that's maybe had a couple drams for the night might get to see her. So keep an eye out for the red lady or the Spanish lady at the Glendronach distillery.
How are things over in Scotland, COVID wise? Like, are they shut down for tours and stuff like that right now?
Yeah, for the most part, I think they're looking to open as things kind of get back under control here slowly. I know the distillery was still able to make whiskey. I know bottling slowed down as that's more of tight quarters working together. I'm sure a lot of people in Ontario know we've been sometimes struggling with whiskey coming across due to shipping issues and staffing with COVID. But I mean, Glendronach is still pumping out lots of new make spirits, so we'll have lots of whiskey to drink from Glendronach for a long time.
Great.
Perfect. Well, shall we dive into our 2009 vintage 10-year-old here?
Yes, this one I did not pour, but just look at this little sample.
Same with me. So this is an exclusive to Canada, selected and bottled exclusively for Canada. So if you are in the Canadian market here, this is one you can only get while you are here. Ontario is currently out of it, but I know there is some still in Alberta for those watching out on the West Coast. Again, BC is the actual coast. But yes, if you're out west, you can still get your hands on this one. This is a lovely one. This one is exclusively PX cask, Pedro Jimenez casks. 43% alcohol volume again, natural flavor. Now this one will taste a little bit different from the 12-year original. The 12-year, it has that Oloroso cask influence still. This is straight up Pedro Jimenez, that PX cask. Okay. So let's see what we got on the nose here. Now for me, this one's a bit more citrusy. Ooh. I'm getting some orange, some of those bramble influence, that berry influence. Some baking spices, almost like a nutmeg. And even a little bit of chocolate on that too. Cheers.
Oh, cheers.
But those red berries, for me, shining through, almost like a berry compote. There's some of that citrus influence. This one, the citrus is coming out after a few more seconds for me there.
I get some sweetness on the palate.
Yeah, for sure. I almost get like almost like a milk chocolate coming through on this one. So it's a softer chocolate, unlike that kind of dark chocolate I've tasted before. Again, that citrusy note coming there. This one's really approachable, really easy going. And we are pairing this one with the feta cheese. So let's see what we can do here. Yeah, I need to cut myself off a piece of that here. No, talking with my mouth full. That is a bit delicate. So it's kind of drawing out those red flavors for me.
So feels so sophisticated.
Hey, nothing like a night on Zoom with I almost said wine and cheese, with whiskey and cheese. Yeah.
Wow.
And I like this pairing because this one is a bit more of a slightly delicate whiskey for me. And so that nice delicate cheese, it's kind of drawing out some of those extra flavors, still holding nicely onto the palate. That sweetness coming forward, those red berries still present. And it's almost drawing out like a cherry flavor coming through on that.
Interesting.
With that feta. So, I mean, hey, everyone's palate's a little bit different. You're going to taste what you're going to taste. But yeah, I really, really like this one. Well, shall we dive into our 21-year-old?
Yes, please.
Perfect. Now, the 21 is named Parliament, but it's not because the distillery is a big fan of government. I mean, I'm sure they might be, but it's actually named for a group of rooks, and a group of rooks, the birds, are called a parliament when they gather. And so there is a parliament of rooks, black birds, that have been at the distillery. They try to nest in the aging warehouses, and they've been there for almost 200 or over 200 years. And the distillery staff are pretty sentimental about the rooks, and they worry that if the rooks were to ever leave, the whiskey wouldn't be quite so well guarded, and it might not be the same as it always has been. But this one, I'm just staring at the bottle here because it's just I can't take my eyes off it. Now we're back to the Oloroso and Pedro Jimenez casks. but this is 48% alcohol volume. So this is a little bit higher. But I mean, if you look at that color on it, if you compare, I've got the 12 here. I mean, look at that darker color there. It's almost like this amber. Oof. So I mean, 21 years in those Oloroso and PX casks, just soaking in all of that color and all of that flavor. What more can I say about this one other than cheers? So, oh, oof. It's almost like those autumn fruits are back, but they're rich and they're mature and they're ripe. There's blackberries, that Oloroso cask, that sherry oak just speaking. I mean, candied orange a little bit. There's so much going on with this one, and it's so beautiful. Enjoy this one. Cheers.
Wow. My gosh. That is special on the, like, right when it hits the mouthfeel. Compare the first two, I'm loving all of this so far, but that was like, right when it hit the mouth, it was like, this is even more special.
And at 48%, it's not hot.
No, it doesn't pop or anything. It just makes you go like, ooh, this is.
Yeah, it's beautifully warming. And then it's like this bitter chocolate a little bit, that Oloroso presence still on the palate. Baking spices like allspice and cinnamons. Oh, I mean, delicious. Delicious.
I agree. I fully agree.
Cheers, enjoy. Now, the cheese we have paired with this one is the goat cheese. And then these are all cheeses that are easily available at basically any market. So by all means, did the goat cheese run off on you?
No, I've got it. I'm just, the baking spices, the spices I'm getting off this are just, it's like, oh man, beautiful. I don't like to pick favorites, but like, you know, you can tell, sometimes not so much on the nose, but right when it hits the mouth, you can tell, like, you just know, like, the way it hits you, and right away when it on the mouthfeel. But now, as I'm still mumbling on here, man, the finish and the spices, beautiful.
Yeah, it's lovely. I've always been a fan of sherry whiskey, but the first time I tried Glendronach, I was like, oh, I'm home. Okay, cool. Yeah. And yes, we've got the goat cheese here, so let's get that going. My cat might come down to say hi in a second here. Oh
my God, it's not even like we're eating cheese right now.
No,
they're imported Scottish chocolates that were sent to us from a magical place.
Exactly.
Because it just melts with the remnants of the whiskey in your mouth.
Mm-hmm. Oh, make sure there is some goat cheese in your mouth as that Parliament comes through. The goat cheese is kind of subtle, but it's the perfect backdrop to that sharpness of that rich PX cask. Oh,
wow, man.
That's a very nice pairing.
that's a very nice pairing. Oh my God.
Yeah, I'm a fan of that one.
So this bottle is also available in Ontario?
Coming to Ontario soon. Out of stock recently, but coming back, should be late spring this summer. We're expecting it, but it is available in the western part of Canada still. You know how Alberta be, but yes, this should be widely available throughout this summer.
Great! Wow, that's a special expression, man.
Yeah, I very much enjoy the 21. It's fun to come back to. Here, have myself another sip here of that one.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Pairings are perfect. Like, I haven't, this 3 in a row, it's like 10 out of 10 each time.
Perfect. Good to hear. And again, it's nice that it's not like these are crazy imported cheeses. These are relatively easy to get, so you're not running all over the map to get these pairings. Then they go just so well.